This video is brought to you by the best wallet in existence, Ridge. Stick around to hear more about the discounts they're providing to the entire upper echelon community. Every 4 years, the United States votes for a president. Every few decades, we enter a new generation. Every 24 hours, the sun rises and sets, and every so often, albeit on less of a rigid timetable here, some idiot somewhere tries to make the argument that video games cause violence, and therefore they should be regulated. This is a tale as old as the medium itself, and it's a story of bipartisan idiocy. In 1993, Democratic senators attempted to use Mortal Kombat as a lightning rod to bring about governmental regulation of the video game industry. In 2019, Donald Trump and select Republican senators attempted to blame video games for acts of mass tragedy. And now, in 2021, a group of artists, journalists, social media activists, and even game developers are trying to petition the United Nations to ban a video game because they believe it will create a generation of radicalized racist criminals. No, I'm not kidding. Yes, we live in a world where some people truly believe this, and of course, it's time to discuss why video games have not, do not, and likely never will cause violence. Your old wallet is fat and gives you back problems. Your new wallet could be a Ridge. Ridge wallets are the best in the industry. Damn near indestructible, lifetime warranty, and a 45-day trial period with a full refund if you aren't fully satisfied. Sleek, industrial materials, room for 12 cards plus a strap or a clip for cash. Ridge is a compact, perfectly designed evolution on the wallet. There are tons of different colors and designs to choose from. The product has tens of thousands of legitimate 5-star reviews, unlike so many products or mobile games nowadays that buy their positive reviews from a botnet, and I am absolutely thrilled to endorse, support, and continue buying from them. I've used one ever since they first sponsored the channel, and I'm not going back. Using the link down below and entering code Upper Echelon, you can get 10% off your entire order. Again, link down below, code Upper Echelon, 10% off your order on the best wallet in the entire industry. They support the channel, so please support them. Big thank you to Ridge. Setting the stage before all the empirical data, it's important to understand exactly what has caused the latest round of "this thing I don't like needs to be banned," and the culprit today is a game titled 6 Days in Fallujah, which centers on the Iraq War. The game looks to be a standard tactical shooter, if you will, sporting a developer claim that it will be based on real-world scenarios, skirmishes, and battles. This, of course, comes with the baggage that any true story would inevitably carry if the story is based on armed conflict. War is hell. War is something that has, and likely forever will be, dramatized and kind of glorified in Western media, but that does not change the reality that war is a gruesome affair. Video games like Call of Duty have depicted tragedy on a massive scale for north of 15 years. In a more recent entry, there was even an actual US war crime from the Iraq War, actually, which was repainted and reimagined to depict actions of the Russian military instead of America. At that time, I criticized such a decision, owing to the fact that the bulk of the game's initial narrative did not have any reality-based theme, but the few elements that were there, elements that absolutely do have historical significance for a great many people, had merely been changed in a singular way that shifted responsibility for the tragedy. I view that to be crossing a line I prefer not to be crossed, but even still, it's just a game. It may have elements that some find to be offensive or even highly inconsiderate, but it does not, and did not, cause violence. 6 Days in Fallujah will carry with it the intrinsic controversy that comes with the subject matter, always, but in response, going further than nearly any video game backlash has gone before, in my opinion, there has been a change.org petition created asking the United Nations to ban the game outright. Now, with brutal honesty, change.org is, and always will be, social media activism. It's worthless, it's useless, and it exists almost exclusively to make sad, pathetic people think they are doing something, while the sum total of their actions can be described as clicking a touchscreen with their thumb. It is useless, they are likely useless, and believing that a website where the most meaningful and lasting impact is scraping your email address in order to send you newsletters every week will actually change anything, well, it's indicative of the exact same mindset that leads to modern social issues of sensitivity and online outrage in the first place. Bottom line, this is a hollow theatrical gesture by people who fancy themselves to be morally and ethically superior to their peers, simply because they read a particular magazine or talk about privilege all over Twitter. It means nothing unless the people they hate allow it to mean something, so let's hope that the developers behind 6 Days in Fallujah don't succumb to that and create whatever game they want. However, this time it has a different tone because the goalposts have once again moved. To fully explain this, we need to understand that the word censorship in media, and especially the gaming industry, is often misused. From a technical perspective, censorship refers to the authoritarian control of what can be said by, typically, a governmental authority. An easy example would be if the 1993 congressional hearings aimed at curbing violent subject matter in games like Mortal Kombat would have been successful. Had they succeeded, they would have been, to the very letter, censorship, but certain other contemporary topics, often the focal point of outrage and censorship accusations, are not quite the same. If a developer, for example, decided to ban specific logos and phrases in their game's player-uploaded content, the easiest word to use for most people is censorship, but the opposition will be quick to step in and refute that. Those who want to see more top-down control of what can and cannot be said, because at that particular moment in time they agree with it, being too short-sighted, obviously, to understand that what is true then will most likely expand and more speech will be targeted, taken down, or censored, for lack of a better word. Regardless, those who want to see more top-down control will be quick to argue that a private institution can moderate its content in any way, shape, or form, and it does not technically constitute censorship in the same way. However, when you create petitions to global governing bodies all around the world aiming to ban artwork, establishing quickly that video games are, without question, works of art, however bad or broken some of them may be at launch, you cross that line into undeniable, unquestionable advocacy for flat-out censorship. That's already enough to deserve pushback. This petition and those signing it need to be put in their place, and their opinions, goals, and positions highlighted for what they are, which is garbage. But the added weight of who is signing, advocating for, and promoting this endeavor is what makes the situation all the more troubling. It turns out there is a significant number of people who actually work in gaming development or gaming media spaces that are calling for this game to be banned by sovereign governments. Lead game designer for Gotham Knights, Osama Dorias, openly asked people to sign it on Twitter. After that, scores of industry figures jumped on board. You likely won't know who many or even any of these people are, and they have been chronicled quite well by a user named Lyle on Twitter, but they are staff writers for various publications, developers, freelancers, producers, directors, project leads, composers, you name it. You would find quotes from figures working on Marvel properties saying not all games deserve to be made, and it just goes on and on and on. The list is long. The petition is actively gaining signatures, indicating that this is not an isolated group of people, and while I do firmly believe that there will be zero response or governmental intervention, it's telling to witness just how far the industry has fallen. Now, as if I have not rambled enough already, let's look at the specifics of this petition before moving over to the data, because we need to understand exactly what these people are claiming and supporting. I can't read all of it because simply the words will get me punished by YouTube, but the final sentence reads as follows, quote, "Bombing, shooting, and humiliating the Iraqi people is being normalized in this sick video game, which will also inevitably breed a new generation of mass criminals in America and brainwash gamers into thinking that prejudice is okay." End quote. Yes, I substituted two words there because I will be harshly and immediately punished by YouTube as it algorithmically scans the video just for saying what was written. The claim is this video game will create mass tragedy. The claim is that this game, unlike any before in history, will be linked directly to actual behavior modification, and that this one simple digital product will have untold cultural and societal ramifications. Now for the data. To start with, the United States Supreme Court ruled in 2011 that there is no connection between violent video games and violent behavior. This has less to do with establishing whether or not that's actually true, even though they reviewed a great deal of material, but it's more so to underline that this useless, impotent petition is unlikely to see any results. Next, we can look at the Media Psychology and Technology Division of the American Psychological Association, a mouthful, I know, which stated specifically, quote, "Journalists and policymakers do their constituencies a disservice in cases where they link acts of real-world violence with the perpetrator's exposure to violent video games or other violent media. There's little scientific evidence to support the connection, and it may distract us from addressing those issues that we know contribute to real-world violence." End quote. Furthermore, there is a very long history of activist campaigns, at least in the United States, to link problematic or vice-like behavior that they morally and personally disagree with to pop culture. Tipper Gore in the 80s attempted to blame rock music for a myriad of behaviors, including but not limited to violence and sex. This type of subjective motivation exists everywhere, but can be prominently seen when targeting the video game industry. In 2018, a paper by Christopher J. Ferguson contained within the International Journal of Law and Psychiatry stated plainly that false positives and false negatives, but predominantly false positives, were a problem when studying violence and video games. This is reinforced by the American Psychological Foundation and numerous further studies found on Royal Society Publishing, which include thousands upon thousands of participants, and even cross-references with tens of thousands of extra data points that span previous experiments as well. In addition, proving the exact opposite from what this petition claims, there is a significant link between reductions in crime stats and the rise in popularity of violent video games, or media. Effectively, the claim that video games cause violence is baseless and without merit. Its exclusive value is to serve as some sort of shield against legitimate criticism or inconvenient problems. Certain Republicans, as well as NRA lobbyists, have at one time used this to redirect blame in the wake of renewed gun control legislation after mass tragedy. Certain Democrats and their supporters have used it to call for authoritarian censorship of artwork that they disagree with, or leveraged it to push gun control during a moral panic. But at the core is data that does not support, but rather disproves, all of these claims, because video games do not cause violence. The petition is a farce, and anyone supporting it is a morally blinded idiot who is calling for authoritarian intervention against things that they personally find to be insulting or offensive. They are basing this on claims that are scientifically disproven, and yet developers, community managers, journalists, and more promote this endeavor as if it makes them some sort of moral paragon. They degrade anyone who disagrees as a bigot or a racist or some kind of prejudicial figure and weaponize buzzwords like racism or misogyny in order to quite literally call for governments to ban a video game simply because they don't like it. It's not often we get to stare into the abyss while it stares back at us with such perfect clarity, but these people don't care about truth, data-driven analysis, fact, or reality. They care about silencing and obliterating everything that they subjectively disagree with, when they disagree with it in that moment, before moving on to the next thing that hurt their feelings that day. It cannot be supported ever by any rational, free-thinking, or mentally stable person. Video games don't cause, period, violent behavior. They simply don't. That is a fact. End of story. If you want to support, there are links down below, primarily Odyssey, which doesn't demonetize me for saying 3 words that the robot decided should be disintegrated. It's rewarding for creators, and all my uploads are on that platform. Also Locals for $5 a month, which is where I put completely ad-free versions of all the videos and also the audio podcast form. Plus, it's a direct line of communication to me as well, so if you want to do that, link down below. There's another YouTuber to check out, social media links, merch, etc., but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.